I came home expecting leftovers in the fridge, maybe a note on the counter. What I found instead was my room, my sanctuary for 20 years, emptied, boxed, and handed over to a cousin I barely knew. My name is Evelyn. I'm 40, single, and I've given my entire adult life to supporting my mum. Paid half the mortgage, covered bills, postponed dreams. And now, I'm apparently too old to need a room in my own house. My cousin's pregnant, you see. That makes her more valuable than me. But they've forgotten one thing. I don't break. I rebuild. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and reheated pasta. After a 10-hour shift at the hospital, all I wanted was a hot shower and maybe a microwaved burrito. Instead, I stood frozen at my bedroom door, staring at chaos. My bed was gone. My bookshelves stripped. Boxes, labelled in black marker with the word Evelyn, were stacked against the far wall like they belonged in a storage unit. A pink floral suitcase, not mine, rested on the mattress that used to be mine. I dropped my bag, slowly walked in, and touched one of the boxes. It was real. This wasn't a mistake. "Mum?" I called out, my voice shaky, already fearing the answer. She was downstairs. "In the kitchen, sweetie." I found her by the stove, humming and stirring a pot of something that smelled like marinara sauce from a jar. Across from her sat a blonde woman I'd never seen before. Curled hair, fresh makeup, soft smile. She looked about 30. A hand rested gently over her stomach, in that way you only ever see in commercials or manipulation. "Evelyn," my mum beamed, "meet your cousin Mia." "Cousin?" I asked. "I don't have a cousin Mia." "She's from your father's side," Mum explained, too cheerfully. "We've reconnected recently. Isn't that wonderful?" I blinked. Why is her suitcase in my room? There was a pause, a microsecond too long. Then my mum's voice took on that syrupy tone that always meant trouble. "Well, honey, Mia's going through a rough patch. She's expecting and her boyfriend disappeared. She needs somewhere stable." My gaze snapped to Mia. Her smile stayed plastered on, but her eyes dropped as if apologetic. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know this was your space." "You're pregnant?" I asked. She nodded. 4 months. I turned back to my mother. "Why didn't you ask me?" "Well," she sighed, "you've been talking about wanting more independence. I thought this might be the push you needed." I felt the floor drop from under me. "You're kicking me out." "Don't be dramatic, Evelyn. You're 40. Most women your age have their own place." "I pay half the mortgage," I said, barely louder than a whisper. Mum waved a hand. "That's family. This is urgent. Mia needs a space with light, with a bathroom nearby. Your room makes sense." I felt something inside me crack. "There's a guest room, full of storage." "The couch?" "She's pregnant." I looked at Mia again. "You didn't know this was happening?" She swallowed hard. "I just needed somewhere safe. Your mum offered. I didn't ask questions." I backed away from the kitchen, adrenaline now roaring in my ears. "So, where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" Mum gave a half shrug. "I figured you could stay with Danielle for a bit, or maybe look into those cute little studios near the river. It's time, Evelyn. You need to start your own life." 20 years. I paid bills, grocery runs, doctor's appointments. I stayed when everyone else left. And now, because someone's uterus was more useful than my loyalty, I was being told to grow up and get out. I turned and walked upstairs. The hallway felt colder now. My hand hovered on the knob before I opened what used to be my room. The light had changed, brighter maybe, or just harsher. The walls were still pale blue, but everything else was gone. My sketches, my books, my handmade headboard, all stuffed into boxes like afterthoughts. I stood in the centre of the room, the stranger's suitcase a silent intruder at my feet. The sound of laughter drifted up from the kitchen. I clenched my fists. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they would regret the day they mistook my silence for surrender. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice firmer now as I stepped back into the kitchen. "You're really asking me to move out because someone I've never met is pregnant?" My mum sighed like I was making a scene in public. Evelyn, don't be selfish. Family means sacrifice. You should understand that better than anyone. Sacrifice? I laughed bitterly. I gave up grad school to stay here and help when you had knee surgery. I gave up moving to Boston when Aunt Mel died because you said you couldn't handle being alone. I've been sacrificing my entire adult life. And I'm grateful, she said quickly, almost too quickly. But this is different. Mia's in crisis. Mia's hands trembled delicately over her stomach. She looked up at me with wide, watery eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't know any of this until I got here. Her voice was soft, sweet, almost angelic, just shaky enough to be believable, just rehearsed enough to make me pause. Don't blame her, my mom added sharply. She didn't ask for this. I offered. Evelyn clenched her jaw. You offered my room. I offered her a safe place, Mom snapped, which, as a woman, you should understand. I looked at Mia again, and this time, I really looked. Everything about her was polished, soft, a little too perfect, like a character from a Hallmark movie. No morning sickness, no bloating, not a single sign of discomfort. Her makeup was flawless, her nails manicured. I'm sorry, Mia whispered again, blinking rapidly like she was fighting tears. You probably hate me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Something didn't sit right, but I didn't have the words yet. Well, Mom said, clapping her hands once, maybe this is the universe giving you a little push. You've been talking about moving out for years. No, I haven't, I said flatly. Well, Danielle has that extra bedroom, right? Or Ruby. You two used to be close. I stared at her. You're really not backing down on this? I'm trying to do what's best for everyone, she said, as if she were the martyr here. You've always been strong. Mia's not. The implication was loud and clear. Mia needed coddling. I was expected to endure. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I packed what I could, clothes, my design portfolio, the sketchbooks I'd hidden under the bed. I didn't bother boxing everything. What was the point? My name had already been written in Sharpie like I was some shipment being sent out. By 10:30, I stood at the front door with 2 duffel bags and a suitcase. My mother was upstairs helping Mia settle in. No one said goodbye. No one asked where I was going. No one followed me out. I stepped into the night. The air was crisp. My breath made tiny clouds. Streetlights flickered as I walked down the block, pulling my bags behind me like the dead weight of 2 decades. I made it halfway to the corner before stopping. For a brief moment, I expected the door to swing open, for someone to shout, "Wait!" to say they were sorry, that I mattered. Nothing. Just the wind. I exhaled, swallowed the lump in my throat, and kept walking. This was what being erased felt like. Not a confrontation, not a fight, but quiet substitution. One day, you're part of something, and the next, you're simply replaced. But if they thought I was walking away defeated, they were wrong. This wasn't an ending, it was ignition. The listing said cozy and urban-inspired. That was generous. The place was 47 square feet, barely wider than my arm span, and sandwiched between a pawn shop and a tattoo parlour. The windows faced a brick wall, so close I could touch it if I leaned out far enough. The heater rattled like an old man coughing, but it was mine. I sat on the edge of a worn-out futon that doubled as a bed, staring at the scuffed floors and cracked white walls. This wasn't freedom, it was survival. And it stung like failure. No framed photos, no bookshelves, just a suitcase and 2 duffel bags that held my entire life. Every object reminded me that I hadn't just been displaced, I'd been discarded. My phone buzzed, Ruby calling. I hesitated. We hadn't talked in a while, not since her promotion and her move across town, but I answered. Evie? Her voice crackled through. You okay? I didn't speak. I heard. Mia moved into your room? She asked gently. Yeah, I muttered. Apparently pregnancy trumps 20 years of loyalty. I'm coming over. Ruby, no. Text me the address. Don't argue. Chirm. 20 minutes later, Ruby stood in my new kitchen, which was also my entryway and my dining room, holding a bag of takeout and a 6-pack of soda. "Wow," she said, looking around. "You weren't kidding." "I told you." "But it's got character," she smiled. "And this layout, it's actually kind of brilliant. Who hung that curtain rod by the entry?" I shrugged. "I did. Needed a place to hang coats." She peered closer. "You welded that bracket yourself?" "Yeah, the old one was too loose." Ruby's eyes lit up. "Evie, this is really good. Like, seriously, I know interior design was your thing back in college, but this is next level." I waved her off. "It's nothing, just patchwork." "No," she insisted. "This is creative, resourceful. Why aren't you doing this for real?" I hesitated. "Because my mum thought it was silly. She said no one pays bills arranging furniture." Ruby scoffed. "Well, your mum was wrong. There are entire YouTube empires built on less than what you've done here. I can't be one of those people." "Why not?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Truth was, I didn't know how to believe in myself anymore. Ruby walked around, studying the space like a museum curator. "You cut that table leg to make it fit the window corner, didn't you?" "Had to," I replied. "It blocked the drawers otherwise." "Genius." She looked at me. "Evie, let me help you. I can take photos. We'll post them. Start a little page. No pressure. Just to see." I stared at her, unsure. "What if no one cares?" "Then they don't. But at least you'll know you tried." I sat down on the futon again, feeling the sag under my weight. The cushions were cheap, the air was stale. And yet, something about the way Ruby believed in me made the space feel less like failure, more like possibility. I reached for my sketchbook, the same one I'd hidden from my mum all these years. Inside were floor plans, colour palettes, tiny swatches of fabric, and paper glued to corners. Dreams I'd shelved because someone once said they weren't realistic. Ruby flipped through it slowly. "This is a business waiting to happen." I didn't respond, but for the first time in days, I didn't feel invisible. Maybe this tiny run-down loft wasn't the end of the road. Maybe it was the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Ruby boiling water on my tiny stovetop and humming off-key to an old soul song. Sunlight streamed through the window, bouncing off the pale walls I'd wiped clean the night before. My eyes lingered on the small shelving unit I'd created using reclaimed wood from a shipping crate. It wasn't much, but it was mine. "You know," Ruby said, setting 2 mismatched mugs on the fold-out table, "you could totally turn this place into content." I raised an eyebrow. "Content?" "Yeah, design content. You've got an eye, Evie. People love this kind of stuff. Tiny spaces, clever storage, DIY transformations." I sipped my coffee and said nothing. Ruby leaned forward. "Just hear me out. What if we filmed a mini makeover series right here? You redesign each little corner, post the process online, Instagram, maybe even TikTok. You never know who might see it." I shook my head. "I don't know anything about that world." "I do," she grinned. "I've helped 2 clients go viral in the last year. All you need is good lighting, your ideas, and me behind the camera." I haven't even unpacked. "Perfect," she said, standing. "Then we can film the whole process, before and after." I stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," she said softly, "someone should have believed in you a long time ago." That sentence stuck with me all day. By the afternoon, Ruby had set up a tripod using a broomstick, a stack of books, and rubber bands. She guided me through basic intros, voiceover ideas, even how to tag content for maximum reach. I watched myself on her screen, awkward, unsure, but there was a spark in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. We recorded everything, my rearranging the futon, me repurposing an old ladder into shelving. Even the moment I realised the overhead lighting could be improved using reflective foil and a clip-on desk lamp. At night, Ruby began editing clips on her laptop while I scrolled aimlessly on my phone. And that's when I saw her, Mia. I hadn't searched for her. She'd appeared on a mutual friend's post from years ago. A tag. A smiling photo in front of a jewellery shop, hand on her stomach. Curious, I clicked her name. Her profile was private, but some tagged content was public. One post in particular caught my eye. A comment underneath read, "Still scamming with the pregnancy stories, Mia? Remember Anna's husband?" My blood ran cold. I clicked the commenter's name and found a public post from 2 years ago. Anna, tagged in photos, detailing how her husband had been emotionally entangled with a woman named Mia, who claimed to be pregnant, needed money, and then disappeared when things got too real. It couldn't be the same Mia, could it? I scrolled back to the post of the woman I thought was my cousin. There she was. Same face, same pose, same gentle pregnant hand over her belly. Except this time it was 2019 and 2021, and now again in 2025. A sick knot twisted in my stomach. I didn't know what to do with it yet. I didn't even know if I wanted to believe it. But something told me not to say anything. Not yet. I closed the app and looked over at Ruby, still editing clips, headphones on, bobbing her head to the beat. "Hey," I said. She looked up. "Let's post that first video." Her smile lit up the room. "You sure?" "Yeah. Let's see what happens." As she uploaded the clip to the newly created @smallspace Evelyn account, I stared at the loading bar. I didn't know if the world would care. I didn't know if anyone would watch. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something real. Not rage, not grief. Hope. The first video got 312 views, not 3,000, not 300,000, just 312. Of those, at least 20 were from me checking if the sound synced properly. Another 30 were probably Ruby refreshing from her end. A few strangers had left heart emojis or "so cute" comments, but the numbers weren't encouraging. I tried not to show my disappointment as Ruby reviewed the analytics on her phone. "It takes time," she said gently. "The algorithm's weird." I nodded, but the doubt had already crept in. Maybe my mum had been right. Maybe no one cared about tiny apartments or clever curtain rods. Maybe design really was just a hobby, not a livelihood. By midnight, Ruby had gone home. I lay on the futon in the dark, scrolling endlessly, watching other people's lives gain thousands of likes in seconds. Teenagers painting walls, mums folding laundry into origami, dogs wearing sweaters. And then, out of nowhere, my inbox lit up. Leon H. Art. "Hey, love your vibe. Would you consider helping me redesign my studio apartment in Silver Lake?" I blinked, then stared. Leon H. As in Leon Haskins, the musician? I clicked the profile. Verified. 1.3 million followers, hundreds of posts, album covers, candid photos, fan art. This couldn't be real. I stared at the message, fingers hovering above my screen. I reread it. Then again. Was this a scam? Some weird bot posing as a celebrity? Still, it didn't read like a copy-paste promo. My heart beat faster. I typed a reply. "Thank you. I'd love to learn more about your space. Can you tell me what you're envisioning?" He replied almost immediately. Leon H. Art. "I just moved. Place has good bones but feels cold. Needs warmth. Heart. Saw your video, how you made a broom closet feel like a home. That's what I want. My head spun. This had to be a prank. Or a test. Or..." The next morning I sent Ruby a screenshot. Her scream nearly broke my eardrum. "Evie, that's Leon freaking Haskins. Are you kidding me?" I thought it was fake. It's not. I've followed him for years. He's into real stuff, indie creators, art with soul. He found you. "But why me?" Ruby grabbed my shoulders. "Because your video was raw and honest and clever. Because it wasn't staged. That's why." I bit my lip. He says his place feels cold, wants it to feel like home. Ruby was already opening her planner. Okay, we need a plan. You're going to visit his apartment, take photos, ask questions, sketch ideas. Wait, I never said yes yet. She rolled her eyes. You're saying yes. This is the moment, Evie. Don't back down now. An hour later, I messaged Leon back. I'm free Thursday if you'd like to meet and walk through the space. He replied with an address, a real one, Silver Lake. Attached was a selfie with that day's newspaper, smiling, no makeup, messy curls, captioned, "Not a bot, promise." I laughed out loud. Not only was this happening, it was real. And somewhere deep in my chest, that tiny ember, the one I thought had died years ago, glowed warmer. Leon's apartment sat on the 5th floor of a sleek modern building nestled in the hills of Silver Lake. The lobby smelled faintly of eucalyptus and concrete, with polished floors that echoed every footstep. When the elevator doors opened to his floor, I was greeted by a hallway lined with black and white art prints and soft recessed lighting. Leon met me at the door in joggers and a vintage Prince t-shirt. "Evelyn," he grinned, "glad you're real." I laughed. I could say the same. He led me inside. The space was gorgeous. High ceilings, industrial fixtures, a massive window overlooking the city skyline. Every surface was clean, curated, expensive. And yet it felt sterile, like a showroom nobody actually lived in. "It's beautiful," I said honestly, "but cold." "Exactly," he replied. "I sleep here, I eat here, but it never feels like mine." He walked me through the space, pointing out where the designer had placed each element. They picked it all, I just paid. I pulled out my sketchpad, letting my eyes trace the corners, shadows, and wasted opportunities. "Mind if I ask personal questions?" "Go for it." "What colours calm you? Any textures you hate? What do you want to feel when you walk in?" Leon paused. "Like I exhaled." I smiled. "I can work with that." As he made coffee, I wandered to the bookshelves, running my fingers over titles. Then I saw it, tucked behind a small ceramic sculpture. A photo, Leon and Mia, laughing, tangled in a hammock, her head resting on his shoulder. My throat tightened. She looked different then, lighter, realer, but it was her, no doubt. Her smile was unmistakable. He caught me staring. "Old photo," I nodded. "Girlfriend?" "Ex," he said too casually. "We met through mutual friends. Didn't end well." I didn't press. He didn't elaborate. But the silence between us changed colour. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photo, about the man now trusting me with his space, about the woman who had pushed me out of mine. Should I tell him? Should I warn him? Would he believe me, or think I had an agenda? By morning, I'd made my decision. Stay quiet, for now. The project was bigger than our shared past. I wasn't going to let Mia's ghost derail this chance. Over the next 2 weeks, I poured myself into the redesign. I softened the steel beams with reclaimed wood panels, introduced warm neutrals through textured rugs, layered soft lighting behind bookshelves and under cabinets. I even added a corner nook with velvet cushions and a wall-mounted record player, his favourite albums displayed like artwork. Leon was easy to work with, curious, trusting, respectful of boundaries. He gave feedback but never hovered. He made music while I rearranged furniture. Sometimes he played unfinished songs, and I listened while hammering nails or gluing joints. When we finished, Ruby came to film the reveal. Leon walked in blindfolded, then gasped when he saw it. "This doesn't just look like home," he said. "It feels like one." Ruby edited the clip with time-lapse footage, before and after shots, and a soft instrumental background scored from one of Leon's demos. We posted the final video at midnight on a Thursday. By 8 a.m, it had 500,000 views. By noon, 1 million. By dinner, 2.3 million. Comments poured in. "Best transformation I've seen all year." "Who is this Evelyn, obsessed with her style? This is what real talent looks like." And just like that, everything changed. 2 weeks after the Leon video went viral, I stopped counting messages, emails, DMs, comments. My inbox overflowed with design inquiries from every coast, boutique hotels, tiny home influencers, even a vineyard owner in Napa who wanted a rustic wine tasting lounge. I was booked for the next 3 months within 48 hours. Ruby and I turned her guest bedroom into our makeshift office. She handled logistics, I handled the art. She even ordered matching mugs for us that read "Designer in Charge" and "Boss of the Algorithm." I laughed every time I used mine. It should have felt like a dream, and it did, until the phone rang. Not my cell, my old flip phone. The one I kept for emergencies, the one only 3 people had the number to. When I saw "Mom" flash on the screen, my stomach dropped. I stared at it until the ringing stopped. Then it buzzed with a voicemail, then a second. I put the phone on silent. Ruby glanced over. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Probably spam." That night the calls didn't stop. She tried again at 10 p.m, then 1 a.m. I finally gave in and listened to the message. "Evelyn, it's your mother. Marley's gone. She left last night. She took the car. She didn't come back. The police said they'll look into it, but she's not answering her phone. I think she took money too. Evelyn, please, I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Call me." Marley, not Mia, so that was her real name. I sat in the dark holding the phone like it might explode. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt nothing. I thought of the stacks of boxes in that kitchen, of my mother's voice telling me I was too old to need a room, of the tears Mia Marley had manufactured with surgical precision. I didn't call back. The next morning, another message came, shorter this time. "I know you're upset, but you're still my daughter. I need you." I deleted it. By evening, Ruby noticed the shift in my mood. "Did your mum say something?" "She's in trouble," I said flatly. "You going to help her?" I stared at my sketchpad where a new client's kitchen layout was half sketched in pencil. "She didn't help me." Ruby didn't argue. She just nodded. "You don't owe her anything." But that was the thing, wasn't it? I did. Or I thought I did. For years, I owed her my presence, my money, my loyalty, my silence. Now, I owed myself something. I turned off the old phone and went back to designing. It started with curiosity, but quickly turned into obsession. I couldn't get Marley, Mia, out of my head. My mother's voice haunted me in fragments. She's pregnant. She needs help. She's family. But every instinct in me screamed that something was off, and not just the photo I found weeks ago on that old Instagram account. I pulled up every digital trace I could find, old usernames, archived blog posts, tag histories. Her digital fingerprints were scattered but not hidden well enough. One Reddit thread from 2021 described a woman matching Marley's description. Blonde, warm smile, claimed to be 4 months pregnant, told a sob story about a vanished fiancé, moved in with a generous aunt in Kansas. 2 weeks later she left, along with the aunt's jewellery, $2,000 in cash and an iPad. The poster never got the police to pursue it. A comment below echoed the same narrative, just in Phoenix, then another in Dallas. Different names, Mia, Marley, Marla, May. Same scam, same props, same story. Each one revolved around a pregnancy, always 4 months in, always sudden heartbreak, always soft-spoken tears and false gratitude, and always ending in theft, silence, and vanishing. I felt physically ill. She wasn't just manipulative, she was a predator. And my mother, blinded by some twisted maternal impulse, had handed her the keys to our home. I gathered screenshots, links, timelines, even a video from a grainy doorbell cam showing Marley fleeing one of the houses with a duffel bag at midnight. I made a burner email account and started sending everything I had to the other victims who had posted. One by one they replied. Some shocked, some angry, some relieved they weren't alone. Then I wrote a single, concise summary of what I'd found and sent it to a small, under-the-radar blog that specialised in consumer scams and identity fraud. I didn't include my name,
I didn't want credit. I just wanted truth. Within 24 hours, they published it. No photos, no doxing, just facts and a warning. Beware the pregnancy grifter. I closed my laptop with shaky hands. I didn't feel triumph, just release. And then, just as I was about to unplug for the night, my work phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "Evelyn, I don't know if this is still your number, but I saw the article, and I think I'm your father." And I stared at the screen. For a moment, my breath caught. He couldn't be. He was dead. My mother said so. When I was 8, she cried at the kitchen table, said he'd gone off the road in a storm, said there was nothing left to bury. Another message came in. "Your mom told me to stay away, said I'd ruin your life. I never stopped trying to find you." I didn't know what to think. I sat in silence, the glow of the screen burning my eyes, my ears buzzing. The past wasn't just resurfacing, it was rewriting itself. I stared at the message for over an hour before replying. Something in my chest trembled, not fear, not hope, but a kind of fragile yearning I didn't know how to name. His name was Michael Hale. He lived 2 states away. He'd never remarried, never had another child. His messages were cautious, respectful, like he was afraid one wrong word would send me vanishing. We arranged a video call. When his face appeared on the screen, I nearly cried. He looked like me. Same eyes, same mouth, same worried furrow between the brows. "Hi, Evelyn," he said softly. "You look just like I imagined." I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to scream or hug him or hang up, but I stayed. He told me everything. My mother had cut him off when I was 6. They'd fought constantly. His depression deepened after losing his job, and her tolerance eroded until it snapped. She told him he was a danger, that he'd drag me down with him, that if he loved me, he'd leave. So he did. And when he tried to write, call, send gifts, she intercepted everything. Threatened restraining orders, told neighbours he'd died. "I didn't want to fight her in court," he said, his voice shaking. I thought, maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't good enough to raise you. But I never stopped checking school records, public lists, forums. I only found you when your video went viral. I felt something inside me crumble. All those years I thought he was gone. He was out there searching, hurting, hoping, and my mother, she'd buried more than just the truth. She buried connection, belonging, a part of me. I ended the call with trembling hands, too overwhelmed to speak, but I promised to call again. I wanted to know more, needed to. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the pieces of myself I'd never gotten to own because someone else had decided they were unworthy. My dreams, my father, my space. But that was over. I wasn't a guest in my own life anymore. And so I started a plan. It began with a quiet conversation with a real estate agent in my hometown. I gave her the address, my childhood home, and asked if she could dig discreetly, see if it was in financial trouble, if it might hit the market soon. It was worse than I thought. The mortgage hadn't been paid in 3 months. The utilities were in default. There were liens on the property from unpaid credit cards, likely opened under the name of the kind pregnant niece. It wasn't listed yet, but it would be, soon. "I can make an offer directly," the agent said. "We'll keep your name out of it for now." I agreed. It was poetic, in a way. The house that had once exiled me would soon belong to me, not for revenge, but for reclamation. Every board, every corner, every painful memory, I would rebuild it, not to erase the past, but to rewrite its ending. This time, I wouldn't be pushed out. This time, I'd open the door on my own terms. The sound of my heels on the porch was sharp, deliberate. I hadn't stood on these steps in months. But today, I didn't come as a daughter. I came as the new owner. I wore a tailored navy suit, hair pinned back, a leather folder tucked under my arm. The door hadn't changed, still chipped blue paint, still the faded wreath, but it no longer intimidated me. I knocked twice. Mia opened the door. She looked surprised, then wary. She was barefoot, in leggings and a hoodie 2 sizes too large, her go-to uniform when playing Fragile, but her eyes flicked down to my folder. She sensed something had changed. "Evelyn," she said, voice soft, laced with hesitation. "This isn't a good time." "I'm not here for pleasantries," I said coolly. "Where's my mother?" Before she could answer, Mom's voice came from the kitchen. "Who is it, Marley?" I stepped inside without asking. My mother's face appeared around the corner, pale, tired. She looked 10 years older than I remembered. "Evelyn," she said, startled. "What are you—" "I came to talk," I said. "Legally." I opened the folder and handed her a crisp envelope. "As of this morning, I own this property, paid in full, all liens cleared. Your name was on the mortgage, but the bank accepted the offer because of default status." Her hands trembled as she read. "You bought the house?" "Yes." She looked at Mia. "You didn't tell me it was this bad."
Mia looked down, suddenly very interested in her sleeves. That's when the front door opened again. A man entered, tall, mid-30s, holding a grocery bag. "Babe," he said to Mia, "they didn't have the oat milk you wanted, but—" He stopped when he saw me. Mia's entire body stiffened. "This is my cousin," she said quickly. "She's just leaving." I turned to him. "You must be Ethan. That's your name, right?" He nodded, confused. I pulled out a second folder and placed it on the coffee table. "You should read this. It's everything you need to know about Marley. Or Mia. Or May. Depends on the state." "Evelyn," my mother snapped. "This isn't appropriate." I ignored her. Ethan picked up the papers, flipping through screenshots, testimonials, even the blog article. "What is this?" he murmured. "Your girlfriend," I said calmly, "has faked pregnancies at least 5 times, used them to gain sympathy, housing and financial access. The belly she wore last month? Silicone. The positive tests? Bought online." Mia's face drained of colour. "This is slander." "It's evidence," I replied, "and it's all verifiable." She turned to my mother. "You're going to let her humiliate me like this?" Mom looked frozen. "Mom," I said, my voice softer now, "she stole from you, from others. She's not family. She's a con." For the first time I saw it, the flicker of doubt in my mother's eyes, the slow, painful cracking of the illusion she'd clung to. "Mia," she said faintly, "is any of this true?" Mia didn't answer. Ethan did. "I'm leaving," he said, "and you're not coming with me." He walked out without another word. Mia stood, shaking. "You vindictive witch," she hissed at me. "You couldn't stand me having anything." "No," I said. "I couldn't stand you taking everything under false pretenses." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Silence. My mother sat down heavily on the couch, the legal envelope still clutched in her lap. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said. "Just know that this house is mine now, and I'll decide what happens to it." She looked up at me, eyes glistening. "I made a mistake." "Yes," I said gently, "but now it's time I fix it." The house looked nothing like it did before. The faded blue siding was now a soft sage green. The cracked steps had been replaced with warm-toned reclaimed wood, and the rusted mailbox had become a planter box filled with lavender and wild mint. Inside, the transformation was even more radical. What had once been my childhood home, full of ghosts, silences and resentment, was now a living canvas. The living room became a shared creative space with drafting tables, walls coated in matte whiteboard paint, and bins of donated art supplies. The kitchen was converted into a communal snack area, filled with healthy snacks and chalkboard labels that read, "Feed the mind, feed the heart." The dining room, now a mini photo and content studio with natural lighting, a refurbished camera setup Ruby helped me secure, and a rotating display of student projects. I called it the nest. It wasn't a business, it was a gift. Every week, 10 students from underserved high schools walked through that front door to learn space design. Not just how to make things beautiful, but how to make them work, how to think spatially, how to solve real problems with empathy and imagination. The idea came one night as I stared at a ceiling fan that didn't spin anymore. I remembered sitting under it as a child, dreaming up castles and furniture layouts, sketching on the backs of grocery receipts. What if no one had ever told me it was just a hobby? What if someone had said, "That's a gift"? I wanted to be that voice for someone else. Word spread faster than I expected. First, a local news station came to do a feature. Then an education nonprofit picked it up and reposted the clip on Instagram. Then a national morning show called. By the end of the month, the nest was trending. And through all of it, I kept my head down, not for shame, but for focus. The students mattered more than the spotlight. One afternoon, as I was helping a teen named Destiny hang a macrame wall divider she'd designed, Ruby burst through the door holding her phone. "You're not going to believe this," she said breathlessly. "You just hit 3 million followers." I blinked. "What?" 3 million, she grinned. "And you're booked 6 months out. Designers, parents, schools, everyone wants to learn from you." I laughed, overwhelmed, but calm. It didn't feel like pressure anymore. It felt like purpose. That evening I stood alone outside the nest, watering the new rose bushes by the steps. The sun was setting, casting golden streaks across the quiet street. Then I saw her, my mother. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk, her clothes worn, hair loose and wild around her shoulders. Her eyes met mine, hollowed and uncertain. She stepped forward slowly, her hands out like she was afraid I'd vanish. "I saw the news," she said softly. "Didn't expect it would be you." I didn't speak. "I lost everything," she murmured. "Marley took what was left, sold the car, the silver, left me in debt." Still, I said nothing. She glanced at the house behind me. "You made this something beautiful." "I did," I replied. A long silence. "I'm sorry, Evelyn," she said at last. Her voice cracked. "For everything. For him. For her. For what I made you carry." I looked at her, not with hatred, but with distance. Like observing an old painting that once hung above your bed, but now lives in a museum far away. "I forgave you already," I said gently, "but I can't carry you any more." Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, then she turned and walked away, and I went back to watering the roses. The next morning she was still there, not at the front steps, but sitting quietly on the park bench across the street, beneath the old elm tree I used to climb when I was 10. Her posture was small, like she was trying to take up as little space in the world as possible. But she waited. I let her. I spent the day with the students, showing one how to repurpose a broken drawer into a hanging shelf. Another wanted to create a meditation corner out of closet scraps. I smiled, encouraged, taught. But all the while, I knew she was watching from across the road. At dusk, I finally walked out and crossed to her bench. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak first. "Why are you still here?" I asked. "I don't know where else to go," she said simply. "You had a home," I replied. "You chose to give it to someone else." I thought she needed me, and I didn't. She looked down, her voice broke. "You always needed less. Or you made it seem that way." Silence stretched between us, heavy but not unbearable. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "I always knew you were special, Evelyn. I was afraid if you realized it, you'd leave, you'd fly away, and I'd be alone." I sat beside her, not close, but not far either. "I did fly," I said, "and you were right. But it wasn't to get away from you, it was to save myself." She nodded slowly, tears sliding down her cheek. "I see that now," she whispered, "and I'm proud of you." I didn't answer right away.
I didn't rush to wrap this moment in a bow. There had been too much damage. Too many nights I'd swallowed hurt like medicine, pretending it made me stronger. But there was something else now too. Clarity. I can't erase what happened, I said. I can't undo the silence, the hurt, the way you made me feel like an afterthought. I know, but I'm not angry anymore. She looked at me, surprised. I'm just done carrying it, I said.
You don't have to ask for my forgiveness, but you do need to understand choices have consequences, and sometimes you don't get to walk back into the life you helped burn. Her chin trembled. So, what happens now? I looked across the street at the nest, glowing softly with light and laughter inside. I keep building, I said, and you figure out who you are without someone to stand on. She let out a soft, broken laugh. Fair enough. I stood up. Take care of yourself, Mom. She looked up at me with eyes that were no longer demanding or pleading, just human. You always had wings, she said. I just didn't want to lose you to the sky. I smiled gently. I've flown, I said. And now I'll help others fly too. Then I walked away. I didn't look back, because some goodbyes aren't sad, they're necessary. The scholarship was small at first, just enough to cover the supplies for 3 students. A few rolls of blueprint paper, second-hand tablets, a trip to the hardware store for paint samples and scrap lumber, but it was something. We called it the Nest Fund, named after the studio, but also for what it meant, a safe space to grow, stretch, and take flight. Each semester, we selected students not by grades or test scores, but by passion. They submitted sketches, stories, or even voice notes about what they wanted to create if someone just gave them the chance. The stories made me cry more than once. And slowly, the studio evolved from a project to a purpose. My father, Michael, began showing up more regularly. Never pushy, always quiet. He'd bring tools, fix the leaky sink, install better lighting in the hallway. Sometimes he'd sit with the kids and teach them how to sand wood properly or measure a wall with precision. He never said much. But the students loved him. They called him Mr. Mike. He never asked me to call him Dad. He just showed up, and that was more than I'd ever expected. One morning I found a note on my drafting table written in his familiar, careful handwriting. You build spaces where people feel safe. Thank you for letting me help. I kept it folded in the front pocket of my planner. As months passed, the house no longer reminded me of pain. Each room told a new story, of laughter echoing through halls, of first-time designers discovering their strengths, of broken things made beautiful again. I started waking up with purpose, not anxiety. I brewed coffee, not out of necessity, but out of ritual. I answered emails in the sunlit kitchen I used to dread stepping into. My home was filled with life, but I still lived alone. And I liked it that way. There was no one waiting for me in bed, no shared grocery list or toothbrush. But there was peace. I wasn't lonely. I was whole. And when I felt the old ache creeping in, the voice that once asked, "Why not me?" I'd step into the studio and look around, at Destiny, now leading her own beginner class on colour theory, at Jay, who'd gotten his first freelance job helping a neighbour revamp their backyard, at Mila, who'd designed her own desk from scratch because store-bought ones were too boring. Their joy, their growth, their fire, it filled me up more than any apology, any recognition, any romance ever could. I still kept my mother's number. I didn't block it. She texted sometimes, not often, never asking for anything anymore. Just updates, questions about the garden, sometimes a photo of a quilt she was working on. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't try to fix what was broken. But in a way, we had stopped breaking each other, and that, I decided, was enough. Because healing isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a steady rhythm of showing up, creating beauty, and letting it live. And I had created a legacy not with blueprints or fame, but with flight. The final video was never meant to go viral. It started as a quiet reflection, a short documentary Ruby proposed to commemorate the first anniversary of the nest. She wanted to highlight the transformation, from the cramped micro-loft where I first held a paintbrush again to the bustling creative hub my childhood home had become. We kept it simple. No dramatic music, no fancy editing tricks, just raw clips, me teaching, students laughing, Michael showing a girl how to line up tile, Ruby adjusting camera settings behind the scenes. Then I sat down, unscripted, in the sunlit corner of the studio and told my story about being pushed out, about starting over with nothing but 47 square feet and an old friend who believed in me, about finding the courage to design not just spaces, but my life. I didn't make this to prove anything, I said into the lens, and I didn't do it for revenge. I paused. Then I just took back what should have always been mine. The video ended with a time-lapse of the nest's evolution, backed by soft piano and the quiet hum of power tools. At the very end, a single sentence appeared on screen. Being abandoned doesn't mean you are worthless. Sometimes it means it's time to be reborn. We uploaded it at midnight. By noon the next day, it was on every platform, shared by mental health advocates, educators, creators, parents, survivors. The comment sections overflowed with stories from people who had been discarded, underestimated, silenced, and who now saw a piece of themselves in me. But that wasn't the only story catching fire. Around the same time, a national newspaper picked up the article that had started it all. The Pregnancy Grifter, How One Woman Manipulated Families for Years. They'd traced Marley, aka Mia, aka May, across 7 states and over a dozen aliases. Victims began coming forward in droves. One by one, they shared their tales of fake ultrasounds, stolen heirlooms, hollow apologies. The scam had gone on for years, but now it was finally unravelling. My name wasn't in that article. I hadn't asked for credit. But those who knew, knew. When people asked me how it felt, I told them the truth. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it to stop her. I didn't revel in her exposure. I didn't screenshot her mugshot or repost the headlines. There was no victory dance, no smug satisfaction, just silence and space and peace. Because revenge is loud, but healing is quiet. In the weeks that followed, the nest received a wave of donations and messages of support. We used the funds to expand the scholarship program, buy better tools, and launch weekend workshops for kids from out of town. But none of that changed who I was. I still brewed my own coffee. I still walked barefoot through the garden at dawn. I still returned to an empty house at night and felt full. And one evening, as I sat on the front porch watching the sky fade to lavender, Ruby joined me with her laptop. "Want to see the final comment count?" she asked. "Not really," she smiled. "Too bad." She opened the screen. The number was staggering. Millions of people who had heard my story, who'd seen what happens when a woman who's told she's too quiet, too plain, too small, rises. And when she handed me the laptop, I saw the comment pinned at the top. She didn't burn bridges, she built her own. I closed the laptop, let the breeze touch my face, and smiled.